Jesus leads as an example. Jesus says, I am the chief shepherd. And if he is the chief shepherd, whosoever that chooses in such a position should have the qualification that he has set aside. And that's why, as I was ministering or teaching last week, we said, for me, I have this position. A lady can teach where she qualifies to teach, and can preach where she qualifies to preach. But when it comes to the office of the pastor, as Jesus has set aside, she cannot hold such a position. I know there is a lot of debate outside there. Although this debate was brought about not because the Bible teaches so, because human rights was brought in. And they say, if this cannot be done, that means you are discriminating one gender. But before God, there is no discrimination. It is simply we ought to walk and do things the way He has guided us. And that's why we are called to follow. And that's why our key motto is, the Bible is our main role, or our key role, or what teaches us what we should teach and practice. It is not just teaching, practicing what it teaches. Because if I can teach and I don't practice, I don't become whom James calls, be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. So an hearer is the one who has been taught, but he has not practiced. So we ought to practice what it teaches. 1 Peter 5 verses 1, 2, and 3 says, the elders which are among you I exhort, whom I am also an elder and a witness of the suffering of Christ, and also a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. Feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of ready mind, neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being ensamples to the flock. Verses 4. And when the chief shepherd shall appear, you shall receive a crown of glory that fades not away. That is Peter speaking to the church and to the shepherds, to the pastors, to the overseer, to the bishop. We said those terms are used. Tulisema kwamba hakuna nini tofauti. Hakuna kwamba bishop iko juu ya pastor ama overseer iko juu ya pastor. Haya ni maneno ambayo yametumika kuzungumzia mtu mmoja, kwa sababu katika kanisa tuna positions tatu ambazo nazijua halisi katika Biblia. We have the head, we have the pastor and the deacon. The head of the church is Jesus Christ. The pastor of the church is the one you have chosen. That is whom the church has given the authority. And the deacon is the one as well the church has given the authority to be a servant. Amen. And now as Peter was writing to the church, he tells them that the pastor should feed the flock. Pastor should not enslave people so that he doesn't get to take his responsibility. No. He is called to be the servant. And remember, the best way the boss will serve the servant is by giving their dues on time and not harassing them. Now, pastor is the servant to the flock. So you find pastor should be the one concerned about the welfare of his or the members of the church, because that's where you find he's the one feeding the flock. And to feed the flock, kama wajua kwamba wachungaji in Kenya, we are blessed with one community, the Maasais. And the Maasais are the best shepherds, I believe, whom they are. When it comes the time flocks need to eat, they know mwezi fulani nyasi itakuwa sehemu fulani, mwezi fulani tutatoka huko tuelekee sehemu nyingine. So you find as they walk together with their flock, they know specific locations where they can find food to their flock. So pastor as the leader, he has such a responsibility. I know even a Sunday school teacher, although doesn't hold the position of the pastor, has such a greater responsibility. But still you find the pastor has to be the one leading. Where should the people be heading? Where should the children be heading? And that is why you find God has given him such a position. Feed the flock which is among you, taking the oversight thereof. So you see, this is the shepherd who is doing what? Oversight. Who is seeing what is happening. Taking an oversight to become an overseer. So you find the pastor still is the overseer. When the church goes astray, who is accountable? Praise God. Who is accountable? The pastor is accountable. Because he has been given that work to oversee what is happening in the church. And things should not be done his way. Things should be done the Christ way. And then he goes ahead and says that, but willing. Not by constraint, but willing. You see, even pastorate should be willing. Because if you are not willing, you won't do it. You will do it because now, when it comes willing, the next part, what does it say? Not for filthy lucre. And the pastor should not be done because of money. I know pastors need money. But they should not do the pastoral work because of money. And that's why there is no day I stand before people and say, pastor is my profession. It is not my profession. It is my calling. And I know when God has called us, he understands what we need even before we get it. So you find you should do what you have been called, do it willingly, and not thinking what you will earn physically, the benefit, the physical benefit. It is just doing it because you know who has called you. So many in the house, if you are called of God, don't fear. Say, nikiwa pastor, nitasumbuka. I've heard some stories. Pastor is not his work. Sometimes, anyway, I believe I want to be there. But sometimes you find some pastors go through a lot. So you find a pastor struggles so much, but he remains faithful. And God rewards in that. You might be where you don't intend to be in a certain time, and God comes and elevates you from such a position. Pastoral is a good work. Even though it is a good work, it has to come with the calling. And when it comes with the calling, there must be willingness, followed at the same. Then he goes ahead and says, but of ready mind, apt to teach. See, that is part of the qualification. He should be able to teach. And here we are told as well, he should be ready. A ready mind, being ready always to do the work that he has been called. Then the third part speaks to us directly. It says, neither as being lords over God heritage. Pastors should not be lords. Pastors should be servants. And we say a servant is somebody, when an order is made, you should be ready to respond. Amen. And that's why you find, if you call me, I can leave whatever I'm doing and be available. Because I am your servant. When the need arises, you find I am there. But if I am the Lord, when you call me, nitakwambia sio unanihitaji, utanitafuta. But that is not how it should be. It should be we being available. And that's why at some point I struggle with this. Our church years will grow. Our church, for example, it is running 5,000 members. That is when you find it calls for appointments. Although sometimes you find appointments don't help. If you have 5,000 members, have 20 pastors. each and every pastor to attend to 250 members. Will the work be hard? No. You'll find that each and every member's needs will be met. Why? There is no need of appointment. Because when a member of a church needs to see the pastor, you should not book an appointment. It is good to inform him that you want to see him, but you should not be given an appointment that you need to see the pastor next week. You find you have been given an appointment of November. It should not be so. Because when the need arises, it should be met. And that's why we are called to be overseers. And overseers should see where the need is and feel that need. But being examples to the flock. I remember saying this sometime back. The members of the church is a reflection of their pastor. So, pastor ought to be an example. His life should show forth Christ, as well the members' life should show forth Christ. I shall not tell you should not drink, and I go and drink. I should not tell you do not sell cigarettes, and you come to my shop and find I'm selling cigarettes. So you find pastor should lead us an example, being an example to the flock. And as much we are talking about the pastor, you are a leader to a team. The same applies. There is willingness, there is readiness, and as a leader you should not be lords but servants. Because you have been given a responsibility. Is pastoral a right or a privilege? Bwana asifiwe. Kuwa mchungaji ni haki ama kwa jina la Kiswahili halisi ni neema? Yeah, pastoral, it is a privilege, not a right. And that's why there is no time I can stand and say, I ought to be here. And nobody can take me from where I am. And that's why we are a church that obeys the Bible. I can't tell you, if you don't want me, you can get out and go. It is better go and sit behind at the church than causing the flock of God to move out. For the well-being of the kingdom. Because you are called to grow the kingdom, not to scatter. The same responsibility to every leader. If there is a problem, find a way. Make things right. Kama kuna mtu umekosana naye, remember you are the example. Hata akikukosea yeye, singoja aje kutafuta kombe msamaha. Go talk to that person. It is always two-sided. Ulikosewa, did you go to see him? Alikukosea, did he or she come to see you? And being an example, you find, isn't easy. And in 1 Timothy chapter 3, you find we saw that a pastor should be, there is a question that I think I answered last. I hope I don't expect that question to be repeated, because we were talking about that qualification of the pastor. First, we say that he should be saved, called, I think I've added another word, willing. So, for you to be a pastor, you should be saved, and that means you should be a member, that means baptized. Secondly, you should be called. Thirdly, you should be willing. Because if you are not willing, you might not offer the services as God desires. Anyway, let me tell this. As a praise team or a praise and worship team, this is another area. You should be willing. And you should be ready. Saved, willing, and ready. Because to be a leader in worship, it is not much of a calling. It is much of giving yourself and being ready to be used by God. And you find that still as a leader, you lead by example. Sometimes I've heard some bad reputation of those people who stand before people to lead. We should not be such a type of people. We should be the one who shows the reflection of Christ. When you start to lead people, yes, God uses even them that have such a reputation. But though we need God to use us in our current position, let us live right with Him. Amen. Let us lead as examples who should be emulated, not those who can be questioned. So we should be tuwe wa kuigwa, si wa kuulizwa maswali ama kuuliza mbona hivi, because that is what Christ requires of us. Then he says